All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
This episode is brought to you by Blink, an Amazon company. Think you're ready for Prime Day? With up to 50% off Blink Smart Security, you will be. With crisp HD video, real-time alerts, and two-way talk, you'll know the moment your packages arrive. Save big on Blink Smart Security, starting at just $19.99 with the Blink Mini 2 plug-in camera. Shop now at amazon.com/blink.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is A Trial by Podcast. Me and Emily laid out at the pool. It's 95 degrees today in Cleveland. It's like it's been shitty and cold and rainy.
What was Dan singing? 95 degrees.
I
ain't got no homie, and no homie ain't got me.
Shout out
Rihanna. It's not Rihanna, but I think Meg Thee Stallion maybe is the one who's...
I have no idea.
Glorilla.
I don't... Oh, yeah, you're right. He was saying it was Glorilla. Shout out to our friend Dan.
95 degrees.
Wait, I had another thing. Also shout out to our girl Emily from Texas. Not this Emily here. There's another Emily who's one of our listeners who invited us to her birthday party in Texas. And I tried to figure out going, but we had some unexpected expenses pop up, unfortunately, so we could not go to her birthday party in Texas. And then she was messaging us while me and Emily were out with our friends last night having a grand old time. And then she just video called us
with her cat, which was awesome.
With her cat and a big ass glass of red wine. So shout out Emily, happy belated birthday.
Hell yeah.
That was the best. And we were with like the most random group of friends, and
also,
they're like, who is this girl?
I apologize because I think we were just yelling.
Oh yeah, we were just yelling. Like, we couldn't hear a word she was saying because we were like in a crowded bar. We're just like, Emily! We're like telling all our friends, like, tell her happy birthday. I wish we had a video of it.
Me too.
Yeah.
It happened so fast.
I don't know if I'd want to watch it back, but
yeah,
I feel like I might watch and be like, ooh.
The vibes at the time were probably a 10, but if I watch them back again, I'd be like...
It might feel a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
But we were having a grand old time. So shout out Emily. Thanks for inviting us to your birthday party. We're trying to go next year. If anyone else wants to invite us to their birthday parties, please do.
We'll consider it.
If we can, we will. We would love to just make an appearance.
Yeah, when we say we were this close to going to her birthday party in Texas.
We were if we didn't have those very unexpected, very big expenses pop up that I won't say anything more about, I would have gone. But yeah, so with that all being said, now that we did our couple minutes of banter, let's just get right into the story. So today, we are talking about the murder of Geetha Angara. So on February 9th, 2005, a disturbing discovery was made at the Passaic Valley Water Commission's water treatment facility in New Jersey. After a frantic overnight search for a missing employee, workers drained one of the plant's massive water tanks and found the body of 43-year-old Geetha Angara at the bottom. Angara's two-way radio and clipboard, which were tools that she often carried on the job, were also recovered from the million-gallon water tank. So this is a
It's a
massive
big one.
tank.
Like bigger than the one from Aquamarine.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Now, along with the clipboard and the radio, there were shards of a broken glass beaker that she had been using to test water samples that day. And the metal access hatch on the tank's floor was found slightly ajar. Its dozen securing screws were like broken or missing, suggesting that it had been opened and hastily shut. It was immediately clear to investigators that this was no ordinary accident. Geetha Angara, a senior chemist at the facility, had vanished during her shift the day before, and now the manner of her death was unfolding as a chilling mystery inside of one of New Jersey's most critical infrastructure sites. Authorities could scarcely imagine a worse fate. Angara had been alive when she plunged into the tank's frigid 36-degree Fahrenheit water, left to drown in the darkness with no ladder to escape. The Passaic County prosecutor, James Vigliano, later remarked, quote, "It was just a horrible way to die," end quote. And he hoped that Angara had lost consciousness before hitting the water and hopefully never regained consciousness while in that water. The question now was how this respected scientist and this mother of three ended up murdered in the very water that she worked so diligently to keep clean for the public. So Geetha Angara's story began half a world away from the quiet suburbs of New Jersey. She was born in 1961 in Chennai, India, and quickly distinguished herself as a brilliant student. In fact, Geetha became the first woman in the history of Loyola College Chennai to earn both a bachelor's and master's degree in chemistry. First woman ever.
Damn. All right,
Yes.
Geetha.
And she graduated at the top of her class and received a gold medal for her academic excellence.
Damn.
In 1984, she emigrated to the United States to pursue further education. And she ended up earning an additional master's degree and ultimately a doctorate in organic chemistry from New York University. NYU, like
Yeah, she was doing big things.
big things. And this was an impressive achievement that really just set the stage for her career as a professional chemist. And I mean, chemistry is not an easy major. I cannot imagine. I haven't taken chemistry from high school, but I remember it being tough.
Wasn't chemistry like an honors thing you had to get into or no?
Organic chemistry was, but everybody
I
had to
didn't do
take
that.
chemistry. Yeah, I didn't take organic chemistry either. Now, by the early 1990s, Geetha had settled into both family life and a new job. She married Jaya Angara, a fellow immigrant from India who worked in banking, and the couple soon started a family, eventually having 3 children together.
Wait, so their names are Jaya and Geetha?
Yeah,
Geetha and Jaya? That's a cool name.
Geetha and Jaya, yeah.
Angara?
Angara is the
Dude,
last name.
That's a cool name.
And I hope I'm saying the last name right. I listened to a couple different podcasts on it, and some people were saying Angara, and then some were saying Angara. But I to me, Angara sounds right, but I'm
Yeah.
honestly not 100% sure because, but yes, a very beautiful name. So they first lived in Clifton, New Jersey, not far from where Geetha would later work. And then they moved south to Holmdel in Monmouth County in 1999. And basically the reason that they moved is they were just seeking like the top quality, best public schools that they could possibly find for their kids. Obviously, like Geetha being in chemistry and her husband being in banking, like they valued education.
Mm-hmm.
And Geetha was known among her relatives as an extremely organized, efficient person who never missed a detail. Like she did not mess around. Her family described her as, quote, a highly efficient, energetic, composed, and a clear thinker, academically talented, end quote, with a penchant for perfectionism. Yet she was also deeply family oriented. She was a dedicated wife and a caring mother who still made time to drive her children to classical Indian dance lessons and cook homemade favorites like chutney for the household. And like she's doing it all because
Yeah.
this is her job at the water facility is not, a laid back, easy job. She often has to work late, and there's a lot of risk involved with this job. Not physical to her health, but there's a lot of risk for the public. If something gets into the drinking water for the public,
It's a big deal, yeah.
And people are, she or whoever was responsible would be held accountable for that. So
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think it's, just you go in, clock out type of role.
Yeah.
Now, in the words of her loved ones, they said, quote, she was everything for the family, the center of our world, end quote. And I highly recommend everyone looks up pictures of her and her family because you just see like the love. You see the love, dude.
Aww.
And it makes me so sad. She just she has that face of a mother where you're like, first of all, I know you cook a bomb ass meal. Second of all, she has that face that's just like the sweet, loving mom that when you go over to her house, like she treats you like one of her own kids. Like
Yeah.
that's the vibe she gives off to me.
Aw.
Obviously,
Just
I've
like
never
warm,
met
like
her,
warm
but
person.
yeah, that I mean, and I don't know what it is. Like, I'm just saying this based off pictures. Obviously, I don't know her, but that's the vibe when you see her. I feel like you guys will know what I mean. Now, professionally, Geetha Angara's credentials led her to a role that was both important and demanding, like I said. In 1992, she joined the Passaic Valley Water Commission, which supplies drinking water to around 800,000 residents in northern New Jersey. For 12 years, Geetha worked at the PVWC's water treatment plant, monitoring and testing water quality to ensure that it met Environmental Protection Agency standards. By 2003, her dedication paid off with a promotion to senior chemist, making her the lead scientist responsible for water purity at the plant. In this new position, Angara spearheaded a major modernization project, transitioning the facility's disinfection process from traditional chlorine to an ozone-based purification system. So I heard this, because I listened to a couple podcasts on this before I started doing my own research, and they kind of stopped there. I'm like, what does that mean, an ozone-based purification system?
That's a lot of big words.
We're all used to hearing ozone, like the ozone layer. And so I was curious. So I looked a little bit deeper into what this meant. So basically what I found is that traditional chlorine disinfection uses chemical chlorine to kill bacteria and other pathogens in the water. But chlorine can leave behind harmful byproducts such as trihalomethanes. First try, baby. First try. Otherwise known as THMs. In contrast with the chlorine, ozone-based purification uses ozone. See, now, God damn it. I fuck up the hard word.
You win some,
All right.
you lose some. Lose some. You win some, you lose some. Oh
You
my
win
God.
some, you lose some.
Man, that sun really took all of our
Me
brain
and Emily
cells.
are like losing it today. So it uses ozone gas, which is like 3 oxygen atoms, and it's a powerful oxidant, and this ozone gas breaks down contaminants from the water. Now, ozone is actually generated on site and then injected into the water, where it reacts with and destroys microorganisms and organic matter, leaving behind only oxygen as a byproduct. So overall, the end product is a lot safer, but it's a more difficult process, basically. And this method is considered more effective at neutralizing certain pathogens and results in fewer chemical residues. So just overall, it seems like the end product is safer, but it's a more difficult process. So this change from the chlorine to the ozone purification system was a significant change aimed at improving water quality, but it also upset some longtime employees who were accustomed to the old way of doing things. Geetha took pride in the ozone project. She was very proud of what she was doing. This was
That was her
a
baby.
huge
Yeah,
change.
that was her project.
And she was leading it. She was in charge, and she was doing something that was going to, better those 800,000 residents who are using this water. So she also was proud of her expanded duties that came with this promotion, and she even obtained a special plant operator's license to further her expertise. So she was doing everything she could to move up in her career path. And colleagues would later recall that Geetha was extremely hardworking and very, very serious about her job. She often kept to herself in the lab, and she was just always focused on the task at hand rather than chit-chatting in the office type of thing. And that's where I say, good for you, Geetha. You rock. We're two different people.
I'm a yapper.
I love an office chit-chat. I love an office chit-chat. You guys see those videos where it's are you guys talking about Marie Antoinette? Which, by the way, is Shane
Just
Madej.
pop up from their cubicle.
You know that sound is from those guys that I always tell you about from BuzzFeed Unsolved. That's Shane Madej's voice saying, "Are you talking about Marie Antoinette?" But that's me at work. Is popping. I'm like, "Oh, what are you guys talking
Like
about?"
a gopher, yeah.
So, unfortunately, as I'm sure many of you guys know, a lot of the times when someone gets this big promotion and now they're kind of the big man on campus, not everybody else is happy about it.
Yeah, some people are a little upsetty about it.
And that was the case here. Not everyone at this plant was happy that Geetha was selected for this promotion. Workplace tensions had been brewing in the months leading up to her death. Geetha had confided to her husband that the work environment had turned hostile after her promotion. Several coworkers seemed to resent her, not only her elevated position, but also the new protocols that she was implementing. They didn't like how serious she was taking everything. They didn't like this new ozone purification system. It seems like she was doing her job properly and she was doing what she could to make sure everything was done properly, but it was making their jobs more difficult.
Because the slackers, it makes them look bad.
That's the thing, is as much as I'm a yapper, I'm not a slacker. And these people sound a little bit like slackers, which is not the type of people that I want making sure my drinking water is clean. I want people like Geetha.
Yeah.
So in one incident in August 2004, the freshly installed ozone system suffered a brief failure due to a faulty weld. And this put additional stress on the staff because then basically I'm pretty sure the water's just leaking and it's a major issue.
Yeah.
Then, in late January 2005, just weeks before Geetha's death, a mysterious pinkish discoloration was detected in the treated water while Geetha was out sick. So the plant had to investigate. And upon her return, Geetha was asked to retrain some of her subordinates on proper procedures because basically they think that this was due to human error because she wasn't there.
Yeah, and she's like the only person that knows how to do anything.
Yes, yeah. It's like they can't operate without her. And this episode just further frayed nerves and reportedly fueled grudges among certain employees who felt singled out for their mistakes. Around the same time, Geetha had begun the process of obtaining yet another professional license, a move that those who were already jealous of her just saw as like showing off or like angling for even more authority. They're like, when is she going to stop kind of thing? And it's like, well, you know what? You guys sound fucking jelly. Why don't you get some certifications, okay?
Right.
Now,
Do better.
Do better. Do better. Don't try and bring people down to your level. Try and get up to theirs. Now, at least one coworker suggested that bias played a role in the animosity. And they kind of pointed out that one of her colleagues, and I don't think this person was named in the article, but they told People magazine, quote, 98% of the plant is white and not all of them like seeing immigrants do well, end quote. So there is, you know,
Some racial tension.
So the coworkers are saying that there was some racism happening here, and that's why some of them didn't like her. And also, I mean, I think it's just like they talk a lot about
she's a very highly educated woman, and
yeah, they don't like a woman in
people.
charge. Like this was mostly white men who worked here. They don't like a woman in charge, but also having a woman who's an immigrant. It sounds like this was a real thing that people were talking about in this place, and that just immediately makes you think: is this part of what led to her death?
Yeah, what happened to her?
Yeah. And I think it's a good question that needs to be pointed out. Like Geetha, this Indian American woman, she stood out in this predominantly white and predominantly male workplace. Despite these challenges, Geetha tried to just rise above it all. Like she tried to just not let it get to her, not let them bring her down. And she had considered at one point leaving the Passaic Valley Water Commission for another job when it was really, really tense. But after she got that promotion, she decided, you know what? No, I'm going to stay. Like, I deserve this promotion. I worked really hard for it. And she loved this work.
Hell yeah,
and
Geetha.
she was not going to give up what she had worked so hard for because other people were upset about it. So by February 2005, she was kind of just juggling a lot. She had big responsibilities at the plant, and she had the friction with a few colleagues. And then also she had her roles outside of work as a wife and a mother at home. Then on February 8th, 2005, which was a Tuesday, it began like any other workday for Geetha and for the dozens of others at the Passaic Valley Water Commission plant. Geetha arrived at the facility around 7:30 a.m., ready to tackle the day's tasks. She spent the morning in routine work, and she even joined her immediate team for a quick breakfast in the cafeteria around 9:45 a.m. I wish my job served us breakfast every morning. That would be so nice.
Right.
Now, during that breakfast, one of Geetha's junior colleagues reminded her that the plant's filtering equipment and clarity sensors were due for a calibration check, something that Geetha noted she would attend to soon. Shortly before 10 a.m., Geetha and the small group wrapped up their break and left the cafeteria. And true to her word, Geetha headed off to perform that scheduled water quality checks, which was a routine task that she had done countless times without incident. So it's not like this is the first time she's ever done this. She does this on a regular basis. It's something that she's very well practiced in. At about 10:30 a.m., Geetha was seen returning to the main building where her laboratory and the water testing stations were located. She grabbed her clipboard, a two-way radio radio and a glass beaker for collecting samples. And then she made her way toward the basement level of the plant. And this was the area that housed several large underground water tanks. In fact, Geetha left her lunch, an uneaten sandwich, openly on her desk, intending to come back and eat the sandwich once she finished the sampling job. Carrying her equipment, she descended into the utilitarian corridors of the plant's lower level, where large aluminum floor panels led directly to the water reservoirs. It was the last time that anyone would see Geetha alive. So this is around 10:30 a.m. Damn. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's going to take them a while to even realize that she's missing. I think they call the police over 12 hours later.
Damn, 12 hours.
Which is just something to keep in mind during this investigation is how did no one realize she was gone for so long?
12 hours seems like an excessive amount of time.
Yeah. So around 10:45 a.m., a technician, and this technician was the same subordinate who had spoken to Geetha at breakfast about the calibration. He was the one that reminded her, like, hey, these sensors need to be calibrated before you do your testing, whatever. Mm-hmm. So this same technician, 15 minutes after Geetha's last seen, he goes into the basement on his own errand. There was something he had to do down there. And he later reported, so like at the time, he didn't really think that much of it, he says, until they realized what happened to Geetha. But he says that he found something unusual, which was scattered pieces of broken glass on the concrete floor near one of the tank access panels. So
Amazon One Medical presents Painful Thoughts.
I've been on hold to make a doctor's appointment for 23 minutes now. The automated voice has told me 47 times that my call is very important to them. I'm starting to think that they don't think my call is important at all.
With Amazon One Medical 24/7 virtual care, you'll get help fast without having to remain on the line to make an appointment. Amazon One Medical. Healthcare just got less painful.
Now at Chipotle, our all-new Chipotle Honey Chicken brings Chipotle heat with a touch of sweet. Seared smoked peppers and savory Mexican spices, blended with a hint of pure honey for a perfectly balanced sauce. All combined with fresh, tender chicken hot off the grill, served up in your favorite burrito or bowl. New Chipotle Honey Chicken takes heat and sweet to a whole new level. But it's only at Chipotle for a limited time. Order now in the app for pickup or delivery. Chipotle, for real.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
At Strayer University, we help students like you go from, is it possible, to anything is possible by offering access to up to 10 no-cost gen ed courses, so you can reach your goals affordably and fast. Visit strayer.edu to learn more. No-cost gen eds provided by Strayer University affiliate Sophia. Eligibility rules apply. Connect with us for details. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
So again, at the time, he doesn't really know what to make of it. About 15 minutes pass, and by 11 a.m., this colleague began asking others in the lab upstairs if anyone had seen Geetha because she hadn't returned from the sampling task. And it was odd to him because Geetha was known for being very meticulous, very punctual, and he's just like, that's weird. Where'd she go? Mm-hmm. But still, no immediate alarm is raised. The plant was a busy place, and there were a lot of people coming and going. And so people kind of just assumed that Geetha was occupied with a problem or she had stepped out. And I think it's just a big workplace with a lot of people. So when one person is missing, you just don't notice, I guess. That's hard for me to believe because I don't know, but I've always worked for small.
She's a pretty important person there, too.
That's what I'm saying. And I've always worked for small businesses. But I just feel like even if you work for a large company, aren't there like a few people that you interact with like a bunch of times a day? Wouldn't you notice if they just were there that morning and then they were just gone without saying anything? Wouldn't you be like, where's Geetha?
Well, that and like people walking by her desk and shit, like nobody noticed she was never there. She's supposedly like this super punctual, on-time person. Don't you think you'd like notice her at her desk or like?
And also,
wasn't it weird that she wouldn't be there all day?
Yeah, and they said that she left her lunch on her desk. Like I think it was in a paper bag.
Yeah, see, that's
but
weird.
It's like, wouldn't you by like 3 p.m. be like, It's weird.
Her
Why
lunch
is her
is
lunch
still
still
there.
there?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe she had a private office. I don't know. I'm picturing this as like open. I don't know. So, like I've been alluding to, the full gravity of this situation, it didn't hit until much later that day when Geetha failed to arrive home that evening. So her family is like, her husband and her kids are like, where is she? You know, this is weird. Normally, like if she was going to be late from work, she would call them and let them know. Like sometimes she did have to work late. That wasn't uncommon, but she always let them know. And that night, she had actually planned to give her daughter a ride to an afternoon basketball game, but she never showed up to drive her daughter. And this was not like her at all. Calls to Geetha's phone went unanswered. And back at the water plant, a night shift worker noticed around 9:20 p.m. that Geetha's car was still in the parking lot, long after she should have left work. This prompted a check inside, and her colleagues found that Geetha's brown bag lunch was still sitting untouched on her desk, and her coat was still hanging in the closet. So it looked like she had never left the building at all, which worried employees, obviously.
Yeah.
So these employees contact Geetha's husband, and they learned that she was indeed missing. Like, she had never gone home that night. So by late that evening, the staff at the Passaic Valley Water Commission called police, and it depends on the source. I read 11 or 11:30 p.m. is when they called the police to report her missing. So by that time, the police come on in because they take it very seriously from the beginning because of the fact that all of her stuff is there. She never left the building and they can't find her, and there's giant vats of water. I believe that they process like millions of gallons of water every week. So like, you know, just this one tank that she was testing had 1 million gallons of water in it. Like, these are huge. So the police, I know, they take it seriously very early on because it
But
had
still,
been
from 11:30 at night.
I know.
That's a long time.
That's why I just think it's like, don't you have a team of people? Like, and she was
right. Did she not report to anybody, or like nobody reported to her?
Well, I
she
think
had no
people.
meetings,
I think
or...
a lot of people reported to her. That's why I'm so confused by this. That's why I'm so. And again, like, I guess I'm picturing like my work. If I couldn't find someone that I was looking for,
I'd be asking around, like, hey,
I would look in the parking lot and see if their car, like, did they leave? Maybe they went home. Or I'd be asking around, and I don't know. Maybe people were asking around, and like, we just don't know about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing's just a little bit weird to me. But again, like my office, we have, I think, 14 people that work there. So it's a lot different than, I don't know if there's 100 people that work here, 50 people. I think that's still different. But again, don't you work with her all day?
I mean, I for sure talk to my boss at least a couple times a day. So like, if I wasn't there and I should have been, then somebody would notice. You know?
Yeah. So during the search, employees came across a concerning clue in the basement because now it's employees searching, but also the police. They're all there looking for Geetha. And one employee discovered that one of the heavy aluminum floor covers. So this is basically like a grate. So if you could picture, if you're walking in a big city, there are sometimes those grates on the ground. And
like Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
Okay.
And no, that's like a manhole cover.
Okay.
I'm talking like it looks like a grid. It's like a metal grid.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And they could pull it off so all the water can go through. So they have these giant grates on top of these giant water vats. Okay. I imagine, I could be wrong about this. I don't know what kind of metal they're made out of. I imagine you could walk across these.
Right. Because
needed.
why else would they be on there?
It's literally made to stop people from falling into them.
Right.
Okay. But they're huge and they're heavy. So this one that in particular that we're talking about, it was 4 feet long and it weighed about 50 pounds. And they found that this one was slightly askew over the tank opening. Now, normally, these were bolted down securely, but the 12 bolts that normally fasten the hatch were broken or missing entirely. So someone had unbolted this, broken it, like yanked it off.
And then put it back?
And then it put it back, but like didn't fully put it back where it fit properly.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, this is an important fact because we are going to get to the point where some people try to say that this was an accident.
How does that happen if the grate is taken off and put back when it's supposed to be bolted down?
Thank you. That's just me. But we'll kind of get there and then I'll get really worked up about it. So nearby on the floor were tiny shards of broken glass consistent with the beaker that Geetha had carried, which someone had like said that they saw earlier in the day. They saw broken glass. And I guess this person had swept it up and discarded it in a trash can without preserving it as evidence because obviously at the time they say that they didn't know. So all of these details together raised immediate red flags, and fearing the worst, officials made the critical decision to shut down the entire water treatment plant in the early hours of February 9th so they could drain the tanks to see if Geetha had fallen inside one of them.
Damn. They can't just like look inside the tanks? Like there's no like...
No, it's in a basement. It's like pitch black.
Oh shit.
I mean, I'm sure they have lights like above the tanks where you're walking around, but like
not
in. They're not.
The
it's not like
millions
the
of
tanks
gallons
are
of tank.
illuminated. Yeah.
Damn.
So
that sounds creepy as fuck.
Exactly, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that so scary? And the tanks
Yeah.
are cold. Like they said, the one that she ends up being found in was 36 degrees Fahrenheit.
So like Titanic weather.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, almost freezing.
Yeah.
So when the first enormous tank was emptied before dawn, searchers found Geetha's clipboard and her two-way radio submerged at the bottom. And they also found a shoe, one of her shoes. But that tank had no body inside of it. It took until 6:30 p.m. on February 9th, so like the day after. So it was like late on February 8th is when they discovered that she was missing. So nearly 32 hours after she was last seen is when they found her.
Damn.
And so that's when they fully drained a second tank that was adjacent to the other one where her clipboard were found. So the crews fully drained this second tank, and this reservoir was known as the clear well because like they're all at different steps in this process of purification. There, finally, was the awful sight that they had feared the whole time. Geetha was floating in the water. And the nightmare was now reality. For the first time in its history, the Passaic Valley Water Commission had to issue an emergency boil water advisory to the public as a precaution because, I mean, that water had been flowing through.
Yeah.
And so they had to remove Geetha's body, and then they refilled the tanks and resumed service. But the larger concern was unmistakable because somewhere within the plant, a killer might be lurking.
Damn.
That's what's crazy about this is like this is a very secure facility. Like it's not,
water treatment center. That's like pretty high.
Like, yeah.
High fucking yeah.
like it is fenced in. You have to check in and check out. You can't just like pull up, park, and just walk in this place.
Yeah.
Like
they got logs.
yeah, they've got logs. It's a whole shebang. So really, the general consensus is someone who works there killed her. And it's such like a whodunit. You know, like you see those movies like Knives Out or something. It's like the lights flash off, flash back on, someone's dead. Who's done it? It's someone in the room.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like. And actually, one of the cases that I'm working on is the craziest whodunit kind of case. I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on it, a little bit of at least a two-parter. So I think that's probably going to be next week. And if it's not, I'm sorry. But I've been really burnt out, so I haven't been doing deep dives, but I'm trying to get back to them. But it's coming. So yeah, they're immediately thinking, this is someone who works at the plant.
Has to be.
Has to be. And I guess I shouldn't say immediately because at first they're thinking, was this an accident? But then they're talking to the employees and the employees are like, no, you can't accidentally fall into one of those things.
Right. Like there's precautions so that doesn't happen.
Yeah. So they know something's up. But really what they wanted to do was look to her autopsy to see, you know, they needed
did she
more.
faint? Did she have a heart attack? Did she have a stroke? Did she get hit and then fall in? What happened?
Exactly. So they obviously begin investigating her death immediately, and they turned the treatment facility into an active crime scene. And an autopsy by the Passaic County Medical Examiner soon confirmed what everyone already kind of knew, is that this was not an accident.
Yeah.
The medical examiner found deep bruises on Geetha's neck, consistent with someone having strangled or forcefully choked her.
What the fuck?
She also had bruising around her waist and her elbows. And these kinds of injuries, these are like the types of injuries you might sustain during a violent struggle. Like, this is not just, someone pushed her into the water. She was fighting back.
Like, she was
struggling. She was struggling. She was fighting for her life. And critically, the autopsy determined that Geetha was still alive, though likely unconscious, when she went into the water, because her cause of death was determined to be drowning. So there was water in her lungs. And I truly believe that she must have been unconscious when she fell in, because I can't imagine
waking up when she's in the water and trying to...
And you can't get out, and it's 36 degrees. There's no ladder or anything in there. And the top of the water is 5 feet below where you walk. So there's no possible way you could get out.
Ooh, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's scary.
That's terrifying.
Now, on February 14th, 2005, just 6 days after Geetha's body was found, prosecutor James Avigliano announced that the case was officially being investigated as a homicide. And there was no doubt in the minds of law enforcement that someone at the plant had attacked Geetha and thrown her in the tank to die. Purposeful. This was purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
Piecing together the scenario, detectives theorized that Geetha was likely ambushed while doing her rounds in the dimly lit basement that morning. The area around the tanks was noisy. There was like pumps and machinery, and it was just loud in there.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these noises would have muffled any screams or clatter or sounds of a struggle. Investigators suspect that the assailant managed to incapacitate Geetha, perhaps from like a chokehold or even maybe a blow to the head. I read this in the LA Times, but I just feel like wouldn't there be evidence of that in her autopsy?
Yeah.
But I do know that, like, I read something about that they weren't releasing all of the details, like all of the evidence. They were trying to keep some things that only the killer would know. But yeah, so I don't really know where the possible blow to the head. Maybe that's just someone. It might just be complete, speculation.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, I think there's obviously evidence that she was being choked or strangled, and this is a way that she could have been rendered unconscious. And the attacker, this is the theory of the police, is that the attacker then pried open the heavy floor panel and dumped Geetha into the tank below. Now, chillingly, an alarm system that was in that tank, and it was designed to detect disturbances in the water. Like, basically, this was there, so if someone fell into the tanks, it would alert staff. But that thing was out of order that day. So there was no alert triggered.
So
that alarm system was out of order that day.
Out of order as in like somebody fucking tampered with it, or
we
out
don't
of order?
know. We don't know. It's just either they tampered with it or they weren't. I'm sure that's something that should have been checked on regularly, like you would a smoke detector or something.
Yeah,
just weird.
Yeah.
So because if it was tampered with, that shows you that this wasn't like a heat of the moment angry thing. This was like pre-planned, like premeditated. They're like, okay, I'm going to turn off the alarm system. Then I'm going to push her in the water. I'm going to try and make it look like a drowning, type of thing.
Well, that could have been the shattered whatever her coworker saw earlier in the day.
The shattered beaker.
Yeah. Was it a beaker?
It was a beaker from her. There was like a test tube.
Oh.
And that she had brought down there to take water samples.
Oh, fuck. Not looking good.
It's not looking good. So basically, without any alarm being triggered, alone in the tank's pitch black interior, Geetha would have had little chance of survival if she did become conscious in that water at some point. Mm-hmm. The water level was about 5 feet below the hatch. So even a strong swimmer could not reach the opening from below. There was no ladder. There was nothing. There was no platform, like nothing that you could stand on. It was just straight flat
just
walls.
Just a drop off, yeah.
Drop off 5 feet. Like you couldn't climb out of it. It's impossible.
That's so scary.
And this whole thing was 35 feet deep. Like this is water freaks me out.
I was gonna
this
say
is the worst nightmare for me.
Right. Like,
yeah.
I don't like that.
No,
I'm getting
hate
anxious
it.
thinking about
it. And they say that if Geetha woke in that freezing water, it would have been something out of a nightmare. Like just nothing but walls, darkness, and deadly cold.
I was going to say, it was almost freezing too. So it's like, it's not like she could have just treaded water for 12 fucking hours.
No, because the water's too cold. You would have become hypothermic.
Yeah.
Meet the most capable CRV Honda has ever dreamed of. The all-new CRV Trail Sport Hybrid. With all-terrain tires and available enhanced traction control, it's built for wherever the day takes you. Heated front seats and a heated steering wheel, ideal for winter drives and crisp early starts. And with generous cargo space, it's ready for big gear and even bigger getaways. The CRV Trail Sport Hybrid. Learn more at honda.com/CRV.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
We see you getting after your fitness goals. But what about those money goals? You can count on Credit Karma for a clear view of your finances and your progress, helping you see results so you can keep checking off those financial personal bests and find your way to money. Progress never felt so good. Download the Intuit Credit Karma app and start achieving your money goals today. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
I don't know this for a fact, but like from what I read, there didn't seem to be any signs in her autopsy of hypothermia. So I like to think that, you know, she went into that water unconscious and she never regained consciousness. Yeah. And that, you know, she didn't have to experience that is my hope. Ooh. Now, from the outset, police faced a daunting lack of physical evidence. The delayed discovery of Geetha's body meant that it had been submerged in chlorinated water for over a day, which severely compromised forensic clues because chlorine is a corrosive disinfectant. So it had effectively destroyed any DNA, any fingerprints, any other trace evidence that might have been on Geetha's body or her clothing. It's gone. The chlorine destroyed it.
So she was in there for longer than 12 hours. That's just when they called the cops.
Yeah. She was in there
for over 24 hours.
She was found like 32 hours after she was last seen.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, because the area wasn't immediately recognized as a crime scene, numerous people had walked through that basement during the initial search, inadvertently contaminating the crime scene. So there's no evidence from her body. There's no evidence from the scene. And the broken glass from Geetha's beaker, which was potentially a key piece of evidence if it had the attacker's blood or fingerprints, because they imagined that was broken during the violent struggle. That was swept up and thrown away before anyone realized that it was significant, before anyone realized that something bad had happened to Geetha. There were surveillance cameras elsewhere around the plant, but tellingly, none in the basement. There were no cameras in the basement near these water tanks. So all of the critical moments were not captured on video. And investigators didn't even have a clear motive to work with. Geetha had not been sexually assaulted. So that rules out a sexual motive, and nothing obvious like robbery applied. There was no, she wasn't having an affair with a coworker. She wasn't, she came to work.
Yeah, she was just fucking good at her job. Like, what? How is that a crime? Like, and how does that get you killed? I don't know.
We all think like, the classic motives are like love, sex, money, drugs. Love, sex, money, drugs. Jealousy. I don't know, but that just goes along with love and sex.
Yep.
Like, this is, where do they even start looking? Because normally it's like one or the other, or sometimes both. You either have a lot of physical evidence, but you don't really know why, but you look at the physical clues to guide you to who might have done this. Sometimes you don't have any physical evidence, or you have very little.
And so you look at motive.
But you have like, well, they were also, cheating on their wife or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, let's go that direction.
That's the first person we look at, yeah. But like, they have no one here.
Exactly, but they don't have really either of those things here, which makes this such a difficult case for the police. And the other thing is that this murder, it didn't appear premeditated to the police. They, whoever did this, they didn't bring a weapon. They must have done this it seems like they had done this by hand. And it seemed likely that some confrontation or sudden rage had just led to an impulsive act of violence. Which also just makes me think, like, I don't know, they must have pushed her in by purpose, though, because they had to move that hatch. I was like, well, what if they just, like, attacked her, then she fell in, they didn't really mean to kill her, and then they're just like,
oh, shit.
I didn't call. But there's no way.
Yeah, how's the hatch off?
Yeah, no, they must have. They must have been trying to kill her. Now, despite all of these challenges, one thing was evident the suspect pool was limited. It goes back to what I was saying about this is a whodunit. Like, it's one of these people.
Yeah.
And the Passaic Valley Water Commission's plant, like I said, it's in this fenced area. It's high security compound. There's controlled access. Every visitor or employee has to pass a guard station to enter. And records showed no outsiders were present that day without authorization.
So like a random person couldn't have come in and just killed her.
No,
for no reason.
or like someone from her life couldn't have like targeted her and just come into the building.
Yeah.
Unknown. Now, of the plant's 83 employees, so that we were talking about, how big of a company this is. I mean, 83 is
it's like a decent amount.
large.
It's not small, but it's also not huge.
But they said that only about 50 of these were working on the premises that day, the day that she went missing and presumably died.
I mean,
obviously.
that narrows it down quite a bit.
That narrows it down, but it goes back to me. Like, how did you not realize she was missing? Like 50, I mean, to me, that's still not that many. You still have a team that you work with closely.
Yeah. But also, I feel like you could probably rule out, like, women because she was strangled.
Well, they do. They talk about that. We're going to get to that. But, like, I guess to give you a quick overview, they talk about, they think it was probably a man because of the lifting the hatch would be difficult for.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know, 50 pounds. I could lift 50 pounds, like, pretty fucking easily.
I mean, I could do it. It's probably not gonna be easy.
But like, if you wanted to fucking kill somebody, you could do it.
But it's also a 4 foot by what? 4 foot by
it's 4 feet long.
50 pounds. That's like an awkward box trying to pick it up.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And
That's
it's all
true.
like grates. I feel like that's.
I might throw out my back, but I could do it.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
if you really, really tried super hard.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. So the suspects pool, it's limited. We got 50 people that were working that day. So investigators were convinced that one of these coworkers obviously was responsible for her death. And in the days and weeks that followed, a task force of 13 detectives poured over employee lists, interviewing every single person who had been at work. And some of them they interviewed multiple times. They collected DNA samples from all 50 people, and all people, every single one gave it willingly. Which you can look at as like, well, maybe this wasn't, why would you give your DNA if you did it? But it's like all these people work there. They know probably that the chlorine would destroy it.
Then obviously they're going to be the number one suspect.
Yes. And you would know that the chlorine would destroy it. I would assume.
That too, yeah.
I would assume that you know that if you work there. So while all of this is going on, they have all of these rumors and suspicions spreading through the workforce because obviously everyone else, they're going to work every day. And they're like, one of my fucking coworkers is a murderer. Like, that's terrifying. And no one...
But that and, like, one of your coworkers has just been murdered by one of your other coworkers. Like, it's not just that one of your coworkers is a murderer. It's that they murdered one of your coworkers.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it'd be a little scary.
And this is what...
At a water treatment plant, like, out of all... That's not a violent place to work. You know what I'm saying?
You wouldn't imagine this to be, like, something where people are, like, where it's so high stakes. Yeah.
Like, tensions, to me, shouldn't be that high at a water treatment facility.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's scared. And here's what they did in response, which kind of made me fucking... And I hate to laugh, but it kind of made me laugh. Because what they did was institute a policy that all work had to be done in pairs. So nobody was allowed to wander the facility alone while the murderer was among them. So everybody had to do everything in pairs, 2 of them at a time. And I'm like, wait, well, so one person's being paired up with the fucking murderer. Like, what the fuck?
I did not even think about that.
Like, one person's being paired up. I'm like, let's do it in 3s, guys.
Yeah.
Please, let's do it in 3s. Damn. Like, what if you got paired up with someone that you're like, I think this guy fucking did it?
Yeah, that's not your buddy.
No, I'm like, what a weird like, did you guys not think that through? That's crazy.
Right. Like,
that's crazy. Now, the good news is that on top of this flawed system that they put together, they did bring in armed guards and extra security. Like, and these people, they weren't just like standing at the doors. Like, they were walking around patrolling the place. Like,
they were making eye contact with these employees. Like, I know somebody did something and I'm going to find it.
Can you imagine working there after this?
No, tensions would be fucking up.
I mean, it would just be like, It would just be so stressful.
Yeah.
Like you've already got, and also,
But then you can't quit because then they're like, oh, why are you quitting? Did you do it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is like Geetha was so integral to this this team that like I'm sure it was stressful enough just filling her role after she died. But then on top of it, wondering which one of your coworkers did this, and it's just crazy.
Company morale is at an all-time low.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad because, I just can't she worked there for a long time. Like some of these people had probably worked with her for years. Like I can't imagine if that happened to one of my coworkers. Now, within a month or so, detectives had zeroed in on a subset of Geetha's coworkers whose accounts or behaviors raised some red flags for them. So initially, they had identified 8 men as persons of interest. So they're like, these 8 men were, a little sus.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because the crime required physical strength to subdue Geetha. So they're looking at these 8 men because they think that they are capable of subduing Geetha, of strangling her. They have the physical strength.
That's it? That's the only reason why they're looking at them?
And lifting the heavy tank lid, like I said before. Now, Geetha was 5'5", 5 foot 5 inches for, I don't know, international listeners. I probably should have put that into meters. I will next time. Someone's going to be mad at me. And I forgot to do Celsius.
Oh, well.
Guys, I'm going to work on that next time. But for now, the rest of the world's going to have to deal with our fucked up American measurements.
Yeah.
So she was 5'5" and 175 pounds. And so they're like, we are looking for someone who is strong. But again, I'm like, 5'5", she wasn't that big. I feel like, again.
I mean, I'm 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. Yeah, 5'5" is like not that tall at all.
5'4" on a good day just took me out for a second there. 5'4" on a good day. So yeah, 5'5" is not that tall. This is odd to me. But they just thought that most of the women at the plant would struggle with this, with having the physical strength. Now, I don't know. I do know that there were a lot more males that worked there. So maybe there's just a few women and they're like old ladies.
Yeah,
and
or like
just
small, fragile women.
Yeah,
like
I don't know. Like, I don't know anything about these women. So maybe,
well, they obviously
I'm sure this made
ruled them out
sense.
for a reason. So
Right. Now, the coroner did note that a very fit or very determined woman could have managed it, but the authorities, like I said, they're leaning towards a male suspect.
Okay.
And many colleagues, when questioned, they spoke highly of Geetha. They described her as cheerful, modest. She even asked coworkers just to call her Geetha instead of Dr. Angara.
A humble woman.
Yeah, she's humble. She wasn't seen as someone who picked fights. She wasn't, starting drama at work. She was a serious woman. She was a mother. She had a family. Like, she wasn't getting into all this work nonsense. And as a senior chemist, Geetha had no authority to hire or fire anyone. Mm-hmm. So it was unlikely that her position alone would drive a coworker to violence over like job security. So it's not like,
yeah, again, no motive.
Where's the motive? Where is the motive? And all of this like just made a puzzle for the police. Now, the Passaic County Chief Assistant Prosecutor, John Lataraka, later told the New York Times as the case was unfolding, quote, either there is some very powerful motive out there that someone is kept completely to themselves, or it may suggest that this wasn't a planned killing, end quote. Meaning that it maybe something unexpected happened in that basement. There was an argument, an accident. Just someone fucking snapped, basically. Yeah. Those are the two options that they're going for. I will say that I do feel like if someone just hated her so much that they were going to kill her, that like other people would have known, right? Like they would have been like, you know what, John over
this
there.
This person's been talking some mad shit, and you should probably look at them.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just someone who has like anger issues, and they started strangling her, and then they were like, oh shit, I can't let her tell on me, and she's definitely going to. I'm going to have to kill her. I don't know. Now, by the 1-year anniversary of the crime, the list of suspects had been whittled down to 3 coworkers who were believed to have been in the vicinity of the basement around the time that Geetha disappeared. One of those 3 was the very colleague who first noticed that Geetha was missing. Now, if you remember, this is the same subordinate who saw the broken glass on the floor earlier that morning and went looking for her, and then he couldn't really find her, and then he just was like, I don't know where she went. Weird. Which I get that in that moment. Like, that's how I know. I go, again, my office, we've got like, I don't know, 14 people. I'll go looking for someone, I can't find them, and I'm like, I'll look later. Yeah. Like, or I'll email them or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like when all day she's gone, that's when it gets weird. But it is like, well, this person was around during that time period. We do need to look at them. Now, another of the three, according to investigators, had exhibited behavior that aroused suspicion and was thought to be on the verge of confessing at one point.
Oh.
So this guy's like, police think that they've got him.
Yeah, he's borderline confessing. Oof.
That is until he hired a lawyer and stops cooperating with police altogether.
Oh.
Now, James Wood, the Passaic County chief homicide detective, later said about the case, quote, "None of them have solid alibis. They all had access to the place that she was," end quote. And Wood believed that the murder was a spur-of-the-moment act, saying, quote, "This killer isn't smart, just lucky," end quote, referring to how the perpetrator benefited from the lack of evidence. But again, it's just the nature of the scene. It's just the fact that there were no cameras down there, the fact that there was so much chlorine in the water and all of these different things. And I tend to agree with this person. I do think this was a spur of the moment killing, and I think they hurt her. And again, this is just speculation on my part. This is not fact, but I just think that a motive would have come out. Like, I think it was someone was fucking just something was brewing. He was, he or they were getting pissed at her. They hurt her, and then they were like, "Oh shit, I need to cover this up." I don't know, because I can't imagine. But this is speculation on my part, but I tend to agree with this. I just think a motive would have come out. I feel like this person, like if they really hated her so much that they were going to kill her to get rid of her, I feel like someone else would have known that this person hated her so much and like told police, like, look at this fucking person.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
At Capella University, learning online doesn't mean learning alone. You'll get support from people who care about your success, like your enrollment counselor, who gets to know you and the goals you'd like to achieve. You'll also get a designated academic coach who's with you throughout your entire program. Plus, career coaches are available to help you navigate your professional goals. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Going on vacation? We're here for it. With kids who turn a backseat into a courtroom drama over whose tablet is louder, whose charger is faster, and why watching the same cartoon for the 100th time is a human right? Yep, we totally have vehicles to handle that. Because whether it's a road trip or a business trip, where your flight's delayed, your phone's at 2%, and your dinner, whatever's open, yeah, here for that too. Enterprise. We're here for it.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Now, investigators attempted to further narrow the field using polygraph tests, but the results were inconclusive. Of the 3 prime suspects, one man agreed to the lie detector test and passed. Another took the lie detector test, but their results were like, they didn't pass or fail. It was, what do they call that?
Inconclusive.
Thank you. And the third man just refused to take one.
Was it the same guy that got a lawyer?
They all got lawyers. All 3 of these guys got lawyers, which is smart. And honestly, I wouldn't have taken a fucking polygraph. That's just me.
No, because...
So, personally, this doesn't really tell me anything. I don't think that this one guy passing means much. It doesn't mean much to me personally, but again, I'm not an investigator.
Yeah, you all know how we feel about polygraphs.
Yes, and how everyone who has a true crime podcast feels about polygraphs.
Yes.
Now, follow-up interviews with these individuals yielded no new admissions or clues. Divers were sent back into the drain tanks to double check for any overlooked evidence. So, like, they had been drained, they looked for the evidence, but they had to fill them back up and start using them again. So then they're like, we should double check this. They send divers in, which is crazy to me. But I mean, I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that they're doing due diligence.
Right.
And law enforcement even brought in state and federal environmental experts to scrutinize plant records for anything unusual that might relate to the crime. Like, they're wondering, was someone doing something wrong at work or something wrong, something illegal that they're trying to hide that maybe Geetha found out about? Because they're looking for motive wherever they can fucking look. They're like, why would someone do this to this woman? It seemed like she just came to work, she kept her head down, she did a good job, and she, like, was a sweet woman.
Right. It didn't seem like she had any enemies.
Exactly. Now, well, no, it's not 100% true, because there were tensions. Like, people were upset that she had gotten that promotion. So, but again, that's different than
wanting
motive
to kill
for murder,
somebody. Yeah.
right? Like, that doesn't seem like
a promotion. You got some other shit going on.
Like, get a new job, bro. Like,
yeah, like do.
Yeah.
If that is your crash out into killing someone, is that somebody got a promotion over you? I think there's a lot of other shit going on.
Well, first of all, you just proved the point that you didn't deserve the promotion because you're a
Right.
fucking psychopath.
Right.
But yeah.
Did they ever say anything like, oh, why was this beaker broken? Like, did they think that was like part of the struggle? Or?
They think it was part of the struggle because she had brought the beakers down with her to take the water samples.
Okay, and then they found the clipboard in her shoe in the other tank.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they think that, like, she was attacked. She was holding the beakers. They were dropped and broken during the attack. Now they're looking for any angle that they could possibly pursue, but still, by mid-2006, the trail had gone cold. Geetha's case became one of only 2 unsolved homicides in Passaic County that year. And with no arrest and dwindling leads, the investigation wound down. And Geetha's family, frustrated by the lack of resolution, kept pressing for justice. In 2007, they successfully petitioned New Jersey's Attorney General to conduct an independent review of the case. State police detectives re-examined the evidence and interviews, essentially bringing in a fresh set of eyes. But this, too, failed to crack the mystery. No new findings emerged from the state-level review. That same year, the Angara family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Passaic Valley Water Commission and specific employees, arguing that the negligence at the plant contributed to Geetha's death. The suit noted that the facility had a history of safety lapses. So basically, they're not following protocol, and it's causing, it's decreasing the employee safety. State regulators had reportedly cited the plant 55 times for various violations, yet the commission hadn't adequately corrected those issues. Now, after 2 years of legal wrangling, a judge ordered the case into mediation, and it was eventually resolved out of court. So there was some sort of settlement, but we don't know the details on it. Now, in response to this, the Passaic Valley Water Commission tightened its protocols, and as mentioned, surveillance and armed guard presence were increased, and employees had to adhere to stricter check-in procedures. Yet for all these changes, the identity of Geetha's killer remained elusive. As the decade wore on, investigators quietly entertained a controversial question. What if Geetha's death was not a murder at all, but a freak accident covered up by panic? Now, this theory gained a lot of traction around 2006 when some officials consulted Dr. Derek Pounder. What a fucking name.
Yeah. D. Pounder?
D.
What's his middle name, I wonder?
I don't know. But honestly, I don't really fucks with Dr. Pounder, to be real with you guys.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. Now, Dr. D. Pounder was a renowned forensic pathologist who specialized in drowning cases. And Dr. Pounder's research had found that a small percentage of drowning victims, especially those who drowned in very cold water, can exhibit hemorrhages in the eyes and bruising on the neck that mimic strangulation marks. In other words, the physical signs that pointed to Geetha being choked might conceivably have occurred if she fell and drowned without anyone laying a hand on her. That's what they say. I genuinely don't understand this, I get the hemorrhaging in the eyes.
But only on the neck? Yeah, only
how
on
is
the
bruising
neck?
on the neck happening? And also she had a bunch of other bruises.
Yeah, like on her hips and stuff, right?
Yeah, on her hips and her elbows.
That, to me, is more like that was a struggle. And
Right.
not random
I guess
bruising
you could say
from
when
hemorrhaging.
she fell in, but I just, that makes no sense. And I don't understand how she would have accidentally fallen in.
Yeah, with grates over to the top of the tanks.
That's why it's like the grate was removed.
Yeah.
And there's no way, by the way, because I had this thought too when I was first like researching the case, is like, well, maybe she had to take the grate off
to do the testing
to get the water out. But there's no way,
It's 5
because
feet.
yes, because there was a 5-foot drop, so there's
Mhm.
no way she's reaching in that. Like that's not where she's testing the water from.
Mhm.
So that makes no sense to me. This whole theory from Dr. Pounder, it makes no sense. And by the way, the medical examiner that ruled this to be a homicide, there were 4 other medical examiners that reviewed the case as well.
And
I
they all
don't
said
believe
it?
they worked at. I don't know if they looked at Geetha's body. I think the original medical examiner that did the actual autopsy was the only one that reviewed her body.
Yeah.
But 4 others all said that this was a homicide and that there were signs of strangulation and that she died by drowning. They all agreed with the autopsy findings.
Okay.
And this Dr. Pounder, he never looked at her body. So when 5 other medical examiners are all saying the same thing, and we know that at least one of them performed her autopsy, I'm personally leaning towards that theory. That's just my opinion. I'm going to give you more of the facts of what Dr. Pounder is saying, but this seems like such a fucking stretch to me. You're going to pull a muscle with this stretch, in my opinion. So basically, they're saying that there are other cases of drowning victims that they had bruising on the neck. And by the way, I don't think he's making this up. Like, I think this is real. I just don't know that it applies to Geetha's death. So Detective James Wood, who had led the homicide investigation, began to wonder if maybe they had been looking at this all wrong, because he's reading about Dr. Pounder's research. I'm so sorry. I'm trying my best, but every time I say Dr. Pounder, I'm just thinking, I want a quarter pounder.
Dude.
And it's all sounding so like such a bad innuendo to me. So this is like basically James Wood, the detective, is like, maybe we've been looking at this all wrong. And on the 3rd anniversary of the incident, after 18 months on the case, Wood had come to believe that Geetha's death could have been a tragic accident born of negligence and not malice. So here's how they say this accident scenario could have unfolded. So they say a plant worker, maybe a supervisor who was like old school, decided to manually collect a water sample from the tank because of this recent pink water issue that they were having, which, by the way, I didn't look up what pink water was. I don't want to know.
Yeah,
I don't want to know.
good.
Because if I see that on the news, it's going to gross me out. But so they're thinking, okay, maybe some supervisor didn't want to use this automated system that they had for like pulling water samples out. And maybe instead they removed the metal floor plate covering the tank and they took their water sample and then they forgot to put it back on. Securely. And so then Geetha comes along to make her routine rounds in this semi-dark basement. And if that gaping hole was left open, maybe she could have fallen. Maybe she didn't notice and she stepped right into it.
Again, still fucking terrifying, but also doesn't explain the bruising.
Well,
or is this them explaining the bruising from the hemorrhaging and then this is their like speculation?
They're saying that the bruising was somehow just from her
5-foot
drowning.
drop?
From her drowning. No, they're saying like they're basically Dr. Pounder's like research showed that other cases of cold water drowning victims had weird bruising and hemorrhaging like Geetha did.
Okay.
And so they're saying maybe that's the thing. So maybe, because that was what pointed to homicide, so maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe someone had left this grate open. Geetha had just accidentally stepped into the water tank and drowned and died.
They got all kinds of violations of that place.
Well, this is the thing is, first of all,
if that's true,
this is why I feel like that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Is, first of all, the grate, the cover of the tank, was placed back on top of the hole. It just wasn't fully in, like it has
just,
like a little
wasn't
place
lined
that,
up
it wasn't
properly.
lined up properly.
Okay.
But it was put back on.
So there wouldn't have been a gaping hole.
There wouldn't have been a gate. No. It was put back on after Geetha was in there.
Oh.
So someone put that back on. Geetha didn't put that on there.
Could it have been somebody that didn't know that she had fallen in?
Why
like
wouldn't they
somebody
say
went
that?
down and was like, oh, somebody forgot to put this back on. Let me do it now.
I think that would have been a huge fucking deal at that place. Like, that is like a huge safety violation. They would have been like, who the fuck left this thing off? And that's why that makes no sense to me. It's like, someone put that back on and they raised no alarms about it being off, which makes me think whoever put that back on would have known. And the other thing is, like, all of the screws, like, they were really they were broken or missing.
Beaker and like
they were broken and missing. So if you had taken that off just to take a sample, which again, how the fuck are you going to take a sample when the water level is 5 feet? It's a 5 foot drop.
Yeah,
no one has a 5 foot long arm.
I was gonna say you'd need like an extra fucking long ladle.
Right. So
5 foot to be exact.
Yeah, I don't understand that. And then wouldn't you carefully take the screws out instead of fucking breaking them when you open the thing?
Yeah, like Hulk Hogan.
Because you're going to put the screws back.
Yeah.
You're going to put the screws back.
Yeah.
This whole thing is, again, it's just such a fucking stretch to me. It's such a stretch to me. But they're theorizing that maybe she accidentally fell through this unguarded opening in the tank, and the person who left it open discovered the horror of what happened, maybe then panicked and slammed the hatch shut to conceal their mistake. So maybe it wasn't a murder on purpose. It was like manslaughter. It was just negligence. And then this person realized,
and they're like, oh fuck, I gotta cover this up because I'm gonna go to jail.
And in this theory, the bruises on Geetha's neck could be misconstrued signs of strangulation rather than the result of any attack. So basically, they're just saying, like, really the crime here could have just been negligence and then a cover-up and not a murder.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole theory is hotly debated. First of all, like I said, Dr. Pounder himself never I know. I'm so sorry.
I can't get over his fucking
Me and
name.
Emily are so immature, which I know that really some people are really hate that about us. But it's like, Dr. Pounder is a ridiculous name. It really is. It really, really is.
And it goes right along with his fucking accusations here.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and I don't know that this
I know he's trying to solve it, but like also I don't know. That doesn't.
What
make
I
any
will
sense.
say is I don't understand fully his research or anything like that, so it might just be above my level of understanding. I'm not saying his research and what he's saying makes zero sense. I'm just saying, to me, if in Geetha's case in particular, it seems like a stretch to me, but I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a doctor. So
I'm also none of the above. So I can't.
Hi, me. Maybe I'm the problem. It's me. How does
Taylor
that
Swift.
go?
It's me. Hi.
Yeah, it might be me. It might be me. But so Dr. Pounder had never examined Geetha's body or her autopsy records. Like he just did his own research, and then James Wood, the detective, is looking at it saying, maybe this
makes
is the
sense
case.
to me.
There's just basically it just showed that this is a possibility.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Pounder's research showed that this is a possibility. And here's the other thing is like Geetha had been cremated according to Hindu customs soon after her funeral.
Oh, so he didn't even have a chance to do another autopsy.
Exactly. And like I said, all 5 of the medical examiners in Passaic County who did directly study Geetha's remains were adamant that the evidence pointed to intentional homicide, not an accident. So Geetha's family vehemently rejects this whole theory of an accident.
Yeah.
And her daughter has stated that Geetha was exceedingly cautious and extremely unlikely to overlook a wide open hole in the floor.
Yeah, especially
even in a
since she
dark
was
room.
like very attentive to detail, like which a lot of people described her as. So that just doesn't make sense why she would not notice.
And here's the thing to me is like, when I see those grates in cities, I purposely don't walk over them, which I know some people think is silly, but like I walk around them. I'm not going to trust that piece of metal.
Yeah, that's probably been there forever.
Yeah, and you just don't know, like, how if they're checking up on it like they're supposed to be,
Paradise is back
It's finally here.
in a new location, Costa Rica. There will be adventure, drama, and romance.
All gas, no brakes. That's my vibe.
Ready to find some love.
But it wouldn't be paradise without surprises along the way.
These kids need to learn.
That's right. Your favorite Golden alums are crashing the beach.
We bring in a party, baby.
Bachelor in Paradise. New Mondays at 8, 7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Living with schizophrenia isn't easy, especially when you're not getting relief from some of your symptoms. It can be hard when you're still dealing with symptoms, like hearing voices or seeing things that aren't there. And negative symptoms, like feeling unmotivated or avoiding social situations. If this sounds familiar, it might be time to talk to your healthcare provider and explore a different kind of schizophrenia treatment. Discover your possibilities at treatingscz.com.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses are powered by Meta AI, so you can get real-time answers.
Hey, Meta, how bougie is Jade Garden?
It's a trendy spot.
What's a color that pairs with this top?
Consider dark, earthy colors, charcoal or black.
What are some good first date topics?
Consider discussing favorite travel destinations or your favorite books.
Get suggestions, inspiration, and answers from your glasses. Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Iconic style meets Meta AI.
With PayPal, I can pay now or pay in full. No interest and no fees. Now feast your ears on this prime cut musical meat. You can pay your own way. Don't just pay, PayPal.
Subject to approval, eligibility varies. Learn more at paypal.com/pay-in-4.
And I just feel like if you're in that fucking basement and you know that water's freezing and all of this stuff, there's pathways. You're not going to be walking across those on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're going to be watching where you're walking.
Yeah, and I just think you would notice, even if it's dark.
Yeah,
like you would notice if that grate was just off. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I agree with her family. I think it's a crazy theory, and I'm not dogging the investigator for saying it or anything. Like I get it, he's looking at all these options, but like let's look for the murderer because I'm pretty sure she was fucking murdered.
Yeah, instead of like trying to explain it away.
Yeah. Now, other employees at the facility also backed up her family's claims. Like she was cautious and they had never seen one of those tank covers left off in all of their years at the plant. They're like, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
If it did, then she would have fucking noticed. Like
Exactly. It would have stuck out. And they're just, even the employees who were looked at as suspects are saying, no, this wasn't
this
an
doesn't
accident.
happen.
And Geetha's daughter later said, quote, I think you would have to ignore a lot of the facts to believe it was an accident, end quote. She said that in a 2015 interview. I absolutely agree. Again, I just think is it possible? Yeah. Is it likely? No. I think it is so unlikely. There would be so many fucking factors that would have had to line up perfectly for this to just be an accident and a cover-up. I think this was purposeful. Now, the family questions why no one noticed Geetha's disappearance for so many hours if it was merely an accident. Again, they're basically implying that if coworkers were involved in a cover-up, their behavior might explain the delayed alarm. So the family believes that it might have been more than one coworker that was responsible, or at least more than one coworker knew what had happened to Geetha and was helping to cover it up. And that's why no one was like freaking out about where she was.
Yeah.
Because then it's like if someone's looking for, hey, have you seen Geetha? It's like, oh yeah, she just went to do a sample, or she went to, she went out to lunch, whatever it may be. I don't know. I don't know that there's that much evidence of that. And to be honest, I personally feel like it's more likely that this was one person, just because I think the more people you bring in,
the harder it is to keep it a secret.
Yes, 100%. So I don't think it's impossible that it was multiple people, but I think it's less likely. In my opinion, it seems more likely.
Yeah, in such a supposedly secure facility. Yeah.
Now, while James Wood did theorize that maybe this was an accident, the former prosecutor on the case, Prosecutor Lataraka, even after leaving his office as prosecutor, he expressed confidence in the original findings. He acknowledged that the accidental death theory, okay, maybe, but he maintained faith that Geetha was killed intentionally based on that medical evidence, based on the ME's findings. Mm-hmm. And in the years since Geetha's death, her case has remained open, but completely inactive. It's a cold case that still haunts her family and her former colleagues. Every so often on an anniversary or when a new detective takes a look, the file's reviewed, but as of today, no one has been arrested or charged. And nearly 2 decades have passed, and the questions linger. Who among the people present that day had both the opportunity and a hidden motive or a burst of anger enough to kill a woman who was described as a kind, intelligent, and diligent scientist, a loving mother? How could a brutal crime take place in a monitored facility without anyone coming forward or any evidence or proof surfacing? But still, Geetha's loved ones have not given up hope. They've kept her memory alive and continued to urge authorities to re-examine the case whenever possible. On the 10th anniversary of Geetha's death in 2015, with the family's urging, a state senator pushed for another review of evidence and suspects. Yet still today, 10 years later, the mystery endures.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the cases that, to me, I guess, hold on, let me say something before we get too deep into this discussion. If you happen to know anything about the death of Geetha Angara, you can call the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office at 1-877-370-PCPO, which is 7276. Or if I just gave you way too many letters and numbers, you can also email them at tips@Passaic-AJC-County-NJ.org. And as a marketing expert, I would like to give the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office just the advice of shortening that domain name.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit long and confusing, and emails are always underlined in documents, and it's like too many I's and J's. So I'm going to say it one more time for you guys. It's tips@Passaic County. Wait, I said it wrong the first time. That's why there are too many I's and J's. I said it wrong the first time. Guys, I messed it up.
That'll do it.
It's tips@Passaic-County-NJ.org. And Passaic is spelled P-A-S-S-A-I-C. And that's why I said I-C-I-C-I-C-N-J. But I'm going to put it in the show notes, so sorry for being me. But this is the thing about Geetha's case is like, this is the shit that scares me so bad because we talk a lot about in other cases what we learned from the story and like how we can better protect ourselves and our loved ones, or what the red flags were. Were there signs that someone was going to do something or that this person is dangerous? And it's like, there were no signs here. It's just, it's terrifying. And my heart breaks for her fucking family because.
Yeah, mine too.
I find it hard to believe that like the people who work there.
Not one person has an inkling of somebody that could have done this.
Which, and it's not that maybe they do. It's just like the police aren't releasing the names of those 3 suspects because you don't know who did it and you don't want to ruin lives. And I think that's fair. So maybe everybody who works there is like, this one fucking guy really hated her. Like I have to imagine that they have a gut feeling about who they think maybe did it, but they probably don't know anything.
Well, then they probably have no evidence.
Right. But it's heartbreaking. And I hope if anyone, I imagine that if you worked with Geetha, you might consume a lot of, whenever her story's told. So maybe you are listening. I think whenever I say that kind of stuff, I'm always like, we're a small podcast. Like people aren't listening. Maybe you are listening. Maybe you did work with Geetha. And I hope that if you have that gut feeling about who you think hated her so much they could do this, if you haven't told police that person's name yet, I think you should.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't charge them without evidence. So, they're not just going to arrest someone and charge them for murder just based off of your word.
Right.
But they need to know who to look at. So.
And if you did this, maybe clear your conscience.
Yeah. And maybe stop torturing your fucking family.
Right.
Please. And on that very sad note.
Damn, that's a chilling one.
Yeah. Court is adjourned. Bye. Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.